Hello friends, and welcome back to the second part of the complete HTML and CSS series. In this part, we are going to start with the first main project. So without wasting any time, let's just go straight and start. In the last session of the first part, we saw the HTML document structure. And we saw that every HTML document must actually follow this document structure. Here, every HTML document needs to have one head element and also one body element. We need to add some extensions. So simply click on this extensions. Extension is simply a software that makes using Visual Studio Code very easy for us. And you are going to see this in a moment. So here, simply search for Prettier and just click on the first results. Come to this place, you are going to see install. I already have it installed. So that is why in my own case, you can see uninstall. So in your case, click on install. Once you install this, just close this and move down. You are going to see this particular icon. Click on it. And here you are going to see settings. Click on the settings. Here you just need to type default formatter. So you see default formatter. Make sure you set it to Prettier code formatter. So you just have to click on this and search for Prettier. So make sure you set this to Prettier code formatter. Once you are done with this, come back to this particular search field and here type format on save. So you are going to see this format on save. Simply tick this. Very important. And now let me show you what this does. So let's go to our HTML document and here let's move this. And now you see how our code looks like. Somehow difficult to actually understand. What you can do here is to simply save this file. You see, when you save this file, like there is a space, you see, the title actually shifted in. You see, the head and the body actually shifted. So the space between this place and this place is what we call the indentation. And you can see that the head, so if you come to this side, you are going to see this particular icon. If you click on this and also click on this, you see that the head and the body elements, they are on the same level, which makes sense. And anything you put inside the head element is also going to have another indentation. If you click on your tab, it's going to give you the same space. So if you want to set yours to be the same with mine, I think my tab size is actually 2. You can go back to these settings and here click on the settings and here type tab size. And you see mine is 2. Yours might be 4. So if you want to use the same thing with me, you can change it to 2. So this actually makes our code easier to read and also easier to understand. So even when you scatter everything, once you save this file, Prettier is going to organize everything for you. The last extension we need is what we call the live server. Click on the first result and also install this. I hope you remembered how we opened this particular website. So from the first video, you saw how we opened this page. Now I am going to show you another way to actually open this particular website. Now, what the live server does is when you add anything to your file, for instance, here, if I say hello and I add friends, when you save this file, remember, for you to see these friends on our website, you need to refresh the page. Now, what Live Server actually does is, whenever you add anything here, now if I add a comma and I say welcome friends to my page, now simply come down, and here you are going to see go live. Click on this go live. Once you click on this go live, anything you do, so if I remove this and save this, you are going to see the changes automatically without having to refresh the page. So this is actually making the development process very easy for us. So now I think we have everything we need to actually get started with our project. Now let's start building this particular website, which is our portfolio website. Okay, and we are going to start from where we stopped in the last session. So in the last session, we looked at the heading elements in HTML. We looked at the paragraph, and also we saw void element. So the first thing we are going to do in this particular website is actually to implement what we already learned, which is adding all the heading elements in this simple page and also the paragraph element. We are going to build this website together step by step, and you are going to understand everything we are going to do. Then we apply the knowledge to build different components that makes up different websites we see today. And then we move straight to the main project. So now I want you to note that if you check the documentation, I dropped the link to MDN in the last part of the series. If you check the documentation and you actually check the document structure, you're going to see that in this head element, there are more to this. So here you can add a lot of stuff, but I don't want to bother you with this for now. We are going to fill in this as we move on with the project. So the first thing we need to do is actually to change this title. And if you look at this, the title here is my portfolio website. So if you look at this, so we need to change this to my portfolio website. That is the first thing we need to do. So now let's start with the main thing, which is adding the headings. So to me, this actually should be H1. So just simply come to the body. Instead of hello everyone, we can just remove this and just copy this. Okay, and here you type Command V if you're Mac and Control V if you're on Windows. And then when you save this file, go back to your page, we now have this. Let's go back to this. So next, let's add this. So you can copy this, and remember from the heading elements session, we saw that it is a good practice to have just one H1, which is going to be the main title. So in a single HTML document, you only need to have one H1 element. Then you can have many H2 elements, but just single H1. It is a good practice. So here now, let's add the H2, and this should be my services. And also we have another one, which is my work. So here, let's add H2, and here we can enter my work. And I think there should be another one, which is the contact me, H2. And here we can add contact me. And now you can save this file. Now let's go back to this particular part. And under this H1, we see that there is a paragraph. So we can simply copy this. And under the H1, let's just add a paragraph, and here we can paste this. So let's save this file and let's go back to the page. So now you see we have this. Also, let's go to the H2. Under this particular H2, we have this particular box. Don't worry about this for now. All we need to know for now is just the text. So here we have front end. You can also copy this if you want, and you can simply type it. So under my services, we can add, actually, if you look at this, now I'm going to pause a little bit. Which one here is a paragraph and which should be a heading? So if you look at this, actually, this text here is actually a heading, and this is heading. So this and this, actually, they look like H3 in my opinion. So here we can actually add H3. And now it is actually important to mention that this heading element, remember, we only have one single H1, but we can have multiple H2, as you see. And also, it is a good practice not to jump from H2 to H4. So if you use H2, the next should be H3. So you don't jump from H2 to H5. You can decide to use H4 here, but it is just a good practice. So here we add this front end, and also still under my services, we have another H3. So here, let's add another H3. And here we are going to add back end. Still under this particular H2, we add another H3. And here we are going to add this app design. And the last one, here we are going to add another H3. And here it should be database. Now let's go to the next section, which is my work. When you place your mouse on this, you actually see this text here. So you can simply copy this. Remember, you are free to fill this with your own text because this is your own website. But you can just follow me for now, and later you can redesign this page the way you want. So under my work, here let's add another H3. Under my work, we now need to add H3, and here we need to add this text. So we go to this next one. Here we have this. Still under my work, let's shift this contact a little bit down. And here also we need to add H3, and we put this text. And last one, and here the last one, do you like pets, guys? Simply add your answer in the comment section because I am interested to know if you like pets or not. Let me know if you also do like pets or you don't like pets. So here we need to add H3, and we are done with this part. So the last one is actually this contact me, and under this contact me, you simply see that we don't have the H3 text. So I think this actually should be H4. So under the contact me section, we can simply add H4, and here we put this text. Let's save this page and go back to our website. And now we have this. This is actually looking good. But let's go back to this. So in the first part, we added this paragraph. So let's now go back to the services. And in here, we have this particular text. So we can simply grab this text. And actually, I can show you how you can generate this text without having to copy this. Remember, in the first part of this series, I actually showed you lorem.com. So we went to lorem-ipsum.com. And when you open this, so here I told you whenever you need just some random text, you can simply come here and copy. also in your VS Code actually allow you to generate the text without having to come to this page to copy anything. So here, let's go to our portfolio website, and under this particular front end, so we have this H2, which is our services, and now under this H2 we have the front end. Now under the front end, which is this first H3, we have this lorem test. Remember, you have to fill this with your own text, but for now we can just fill this with any random text, and I'm going to show you using the lorem. So here we want to add our p tag because that's actually is a paragraph. So remember, to do this, all you need to do is type lorem, and either you use this multiply by 3. So this is going to generate 3 lines if you use that. Now, if you use just 3 and you press enter, so it's either you press the tab or you press enter. This is going to generate 3 words for you, as you see. So let's remove this. And now let's type lorem again. And here put 10. So if you hit enter, this is going to generate 10 words. If you count this, this should be 10. So you can save this. All right. Now let's go to the second one, and which is this H3. So here again, let's add our p tag. And here we can simply enter lorem and 10. You hit enter. The next one is this. So we put our p tag, and here lorem 10 and enter. And the last one, we put our p tag here, and here lorem 10, and we hit enter. Now you can save this file. So if you go to the page now, you have this. So let's go to the next one, which is actually my work. And here we have this p tag. So we can simply grab that, or you also use the lorem ipsum. So under my work, we add this particular H3. So the next one, let's put this. You can actually pause the video and fill up this by yourself. Okay, now you can save this. Let's go to the next session, which is contact me. And the only thing we have as a paragraph is actually this. So under contact me, we have contact us, and under this H4, we can now add our P and we paste this. So once you save this file, and let's go back to our website, we now have this. And on the big screen, you are going to have something like this. And I am happy about this. This is actually looking nice. We are already on our way to building and completing our own portfolio website. The next element we are going to be looking at is what we call the image element. How can we actually add an image? In HTML, an image is actually a special element. And to add an image, all you need to do is to write your less than, and then here you put img, and then you close this. Remember from the void element, when we learned about the void element, this actually is a void element. So if you save this file and go to your page, nothing is going to happen. This is because the image is a special element. It needs something else for it to work. And here we need to add what we call an attribute. In HTML, an attribute is simply used to describe an element or modify the behavior of an element. And we have many attributes in HTML, but for this image, we need to add what we call the source attribute. And you simply write src, you write equals to, and then this double quotation. Note, there must be a space between the element name. So this is the element name. In this case is the image. So there must be a space between the element name and the attribute. And here, this is what we call the attribute name. In this case, it is the source. And here we need to specify the attribute value. In this case, we want to add a path to an image. Like, we need to tell the browser which image to load. One way is to actually search for the image you want to use. So the first way I'm going to show you is not going to be the method we are going to be using, but I just want to show you that it is possible. So you can simply go to a website. Here you can go to unsplash.com, and here in this website it gives you access to free images that you can actually use while building your website. And here you can search for any image. So for me, I want to search for a professional girl, and here this is the image I used in the project. But first, I want to use this one. So here, if you right click on this image, you can actually see copy image address. So if you copy the image address and you come back to this particular SRC, you can actually paste this here and save this file. When you save this file and go back to your page, you actually see the image. I'm going to show you the second way you can add the image, but first, let's look at another attribute. And this particular attribute is also very important. Like, when you use an image element in your HTML, you must actually add this particular one, and it is called the auth element, which means alternative text. So inside this auth text, you can now add the description of the image you added, and it must be an explicit description. So here I can add image of beautiful Grace smiling, or beautiful Grace smiling. You can actually come up with a better description than mine. So if you save this and go back to the page, you see that nothing happens. This is not going to affect anything. But the question is, why then do we have to add this? Number one, this is important for screen readers. For instance, a blind person. When a blind person comes to your page, how can the person actually know that there is an image? With this auth attribute, the blind person can actually understand that, oh, there is Grace image on the page and she is actually smiling. So this is very important. Another thing is, if anything should go wrong in the path we specified, so here in the source, let's remove this U and save the file. You see, now this is an incorrect link. So if you look at this, you see something like this, but you can also see beautiful Grace smiling. So you see, this is very important. Looking at this image, it is actually too big. Let's look at another attribute you can add to your image element. And here you can specify the width of your image. I'm going to write 400. You can also specify the height. And here also I'm going to write 400. And when you save this file, you see this now. And I think this looks a bit better. Now let's remove this and let's look at another way we can actually add this image. What we did initially was to actually copy an image online. So if you don't have an internet, this may not work. So one thing we can do is actually to come to this particular path. If you downloaded the project folder from the GitHub link I dropped, you are going to see a folder named images. and here you actually have access to the image. But this is a portfolio website and you should use your own image. To add a folder, you just place your mouse here and then you can see new folder. Just click on this and here you can call it images. I'm going to right click on this again, and in here you can see this option, save image as. So now you need to go to your desktop or wherever you created your own project. Mine is in my desktop, and then you can go to HTML CSS course, and here this is the images folder we created. Now I'm going to change this to grace.jpg and use JPEG. Yes. Now let's go back to our VS Code. If you open this images folder, you should see grace.jpg. All right, so go back to your index.html, and in here, inside this src, here you can now write images. So, and you see Visual Studio Code is actually helping us out. So here you can write images. So we want to go to images slash. So we are going to images, and inside the images, we want to go to grace.jpg. You can save this and now go back to the website. You now have this particular image. Okay. Another thing you can do is actually to remove this, write dots and slash. Since the folder is just at the root, so here you are going to select images and you select grace, and you can also save this. It is still the same thing. If you look at my own HTML document, on this particular line where I have the source to the image, you actually see the image here. And this is because I am using another extension. If you want to add this, click on this extension and search for image preview. So if you click on the first result, you can install this extension. Once you add the extension, you are going to have the same thing as I do. Just a recap. So to add an image in your HTML, you need two important attributes. First is the source attribute, and the second one is the auth attribute. Now that we learned about attributes, let's actually go back to our HTML document structure. So the body is where we put everything we see on our page, which is this. So you see from the H1 down, that is everything we have here right in the body. If you remove all this and put it here in the head, you are not going to see it on the page. Now that we understand what the attribute does, let's actually go back to this head section, and here let's add some things. So here let's add meta, and we write this and then the greater than, and in here we are going to write what we call the char set, which is the character set, and here we are going to specify UTF-8. Okay. If you hover on this, you see that this actually is just a metadata. This is just a character set attribute, and this particular attribute specifies the character encoding for our document. This makes it easy for our document to actually handle any textual content. And this particular UTF-8 actually includes most characters from the majority of human written languages. Okay, the next thing we are going to add here is also another metadata. So here we need another attribute which we call name, and here we are going to put the attribute value. In this case, viewport. Can add as many attributes as we want. The only thing we need to do is actually to add a space between them. So here we have the element name. You must add a space. So if you do this, this is wrong, because this means that you are trying to write meta name as an element name, which is actually wrong. So there must be a space here. And the next, to add another attribute, all you need to do is to add another space. In this case, we are going to call it content. And the content should be equal to width. And the width now should be equal to what we call the device. And then you just put comma. And here just write initial scale and equate this to 1 to 1. This might look a little bit strange to you. So what this does is to make sure that your website works well in any device. So if you open it on phone, if you open it on tablet, as you see, different devices actually have different width. So the phone width is different from the tablet. So before we leave this session, I'm going to show you another thing, and that is what we call the developer tool. From the introductory part of this series, in the first part, I showed you something. When you click on these 3 dots and then you move down, you see more tools, and under more tools, you see developer tools. You can click on this. And this is going to take you to this particular section. And this is what we call the developer tools. So the first one here, we have the element, we have the console. The console is very important. We don't need this for now. What we need for now is just this element. What we need for now is just this element. So if you look at this very well, so we can move this a little bit. And here you see you have this element, and also you have the styles. When we start learning about CSS, this is going to make more sense. But here you see the test. This is the H1 test, which is this. As a software developer, this is very important for us. So these are actually very important tools for us. And as you can see, all the content of your HTML document is also present here. So you have your head. If you open this, you are going to see everything we added. This is the title. If you expand this, you are going to see the paragraph text, and you can even change it. So here I can remove this text. You can edit this text here. So here you can actually decide to change it to wonder, and if you hit enter, you see this changes to wonder. But note that when you refresh this page, it's going to change back to what you have initially. Also, if you look at this part, if you click on this, you can actually see your page in different devices. We just spoke about our page fitting the screen of different devices. So here you can see this responsive. If you click on this, you can actually select different mobile devices or desktop or iPad. So here, if you select Nexus, you see that on this particular phone, this is how your website is going to look like. This is very important, and we are going to be looking into how you can make good use of all the developer tools we have. For now, I think this is okay. Looking at our document, this is actually becoming a little bit difficult to understand. Like if you look at this website, you could clearly see that this is like a session, and also you have this my services. And you see, my services is also another section on its own. And also my work is also another section on its own. But if you look at your HTML document, it is so difficult to understand where does this particular section start and where does it end. So you can actually use comment to specify that this is the services section. And how do you write comment in HTML? So you can simply write your less than, and here you need to write exclamation mark. It's a little bit strange. And after the exclamation mark, you need to write dash dash, and VS Code is going to help you out. So let's remove this. So if I remove this, you see that everything is commented. Remember, I told you that we just want to use this to write, like we want to put some comments or something like, oh, this is the services session. But if you save this file now and you go back to your page, so let's go back to the page, you see that after the image, so this is the image, and this is this particular comment. So this is what we call the opening part. So this is saying that I want a comment and I want it to start from here. Now we have not closed it, and that is why every other thing in the page is actually commented. And here you see that there is nothing after the image. And you can also see prettier telling you that there is an error, because now you already commented out the closing tag for the body and also the closing tag for your HTML. So here, what you need to do in order to close this comment, for instance, if I don't want to show this H2, I can now come after this H2, I can now put dash dash and greater than. So you see the changes now. When you save this file and go back to your page, you do not see my services, but you can easily see the remaining part. So with this, you actually see the functionality of this particular comment. So this actually helps us to put some things that we only want to see in our HTML file, but we don't want to see it on the website. We don't want the users to see it. So one thing we can actually use this comment for is actually to comment out some code that we don't want to show in our browser. And another thing is also to make our code more easy to understand. So here we can simply say, this is our services session or services. And we're going to do the same thing for the remaining session more. So after this H2, let's go to the next H2 here. We write our less than, we write the exclamation mark, we write the dash dash, and VS Code is going to close this for us. And here we need to say my work session. And when you save this, you see this is going to be indented. And this is because we are using the format on save. So prettier is also helping us out. Next, let's go to the next one, which is this H2 here. And in here, let's just put another comment. So less than, exclamation, dash dash, and here we can say contact session. Now let's look at another HTML element. What happens if we want to make this particular text bold? So if we want to actually emphasize that this is important, how do we do that in HTML? So let's go back to the P. So here we have our P. And inside the P, we have this text, which is the full stack engineer. And this is the opening tag. So let's remove this. And you need to put it at the end of the text. So you save this now, and you see that there is a change. But this is actually the old way of doing this. So with HTML5, it is better to use another HTML element, which is called strong. So if you use this strong and you save this file, you are going to get the same result. So this strong element actually has what we call semantic meaning. We're going to look into this later. So that actually means that the strong, when you use the strong tag, it also helps. Remember, from the image element, we said the auth attribute actually helps screen readers like the blind people. So if you use the B does not contain any meaning. It does not tell the blind people that, oh, this text is actually important. But when you use this strong element, now let's go to our deployed website, and down here you can actually see the way this text is, and this looks like italic. So how do we do this in our HTML document? So let's go before the end of this particular body tag. So inside the body tag, let's add a paragraph. And inside this paragraph, let's just copy this text and put in the paragraph. When you save this file and go to your page, you now have this, but it is not the way it looks like. So instead of using the paragraph here, we can also use the italic. Just like the bold element, this also is the old way of doing this. It has no semantic meaning. So when you save this, you see this actually changes. Now, in HTML5, it is better to use EM, which means emphasis. So we are laying more emphasis on this text. So if you save this, you are going to get yet the same result. Good. Now we are going to look at another important element in HTML, and that is what we call list. How do we add list? Now, if you visit any website, for instance, if you go to youtube.com, so let's go to youtube.com, you see these are lists of items. If you go to our own portfolio website, this also is a list, and you're going to see this in a moment. Now, let's go back to our HTML file and actually see how we can add list in HTML. So in HTML, there are two kinds of lists. The first one is what we call the ordered list, and the second one is the unordered list. So the ordered list is also called the numbered list. So if you use the ordered list, it's going to be numbered like 1, 2. Now let's go back to our page, and just before the H1, so to add an ordered list in HTML, all you need to do is also to write your less than, and here you need to put OL. You close this. So this is the opening, this is the closing. OL means ordered list. And in here, you now need to add your list. So what are the items you want to add here? So in our case, first we have, so if you go here, we have the home, and let's add another LI. Here we add about. Let's add another LI. So in here, you can add as much list items as you want. So here you can add my work. And now the last one, you add CV. If you save this file and go back to our page, so you see now we have this item. You see 1, 2, 3. Now, if you look at this list element and you look at this H1, inside this H1, we do not have any other elements. So in this paragraph, remember, we added another element. So the process of adding an element inside another element is simply what is called nesting element. So we are nesting an element inside another element. For the list item, it is always like that. For the ordered list, you must have the OL, and inside the OL, you now have to add all your list item. You can either add 2. If you save this, you are going to just have 2, and you can add as much as you want. The second list item is also the same thing. The only difference is just that instead of OL, you simply use UL. And UL stands for unordered list. And inside this UL, you need to add the same thing, which is the LI. And here you simply add home. So we can simply copy everything we have here, and we are going to put it here. And now you see the difference. So for the ordered list, it is numbered 1 to 3. And for unordered list, you simply see the bullet points. These are the list elements in HTML. So before, I told you that if you go to YouTube, for instance, I told you that everything you see here, that most of these things are actually list items. That is the truth. The only thing is, with CSS, we now transition the list item to look just the way we want. If you go to the deployed project, you see this is actually an unordered list, but with CSS, we make it look just exactly the way we want. So you are going to see how to transform this unordered list to actually look like this. And you will begin to have an idea how all these websites are being curated little by little. Now, let's look at another very important element in HTML, and this is the hyperlink, which actually helps us to link our document to another document. For instance, if I want to link this particular website to the YouTube, how do I do that? Now, let's go back to our document, and under this UL, before the H1 here, so you simply write less than, you write your A, and then you close this. So this is the opening and also the closing tag. And in here, you can simply say link to YouTube. When you save this file, you are going to see link to YouTube, but this does not do anything. And this is because, just like the image element, remember, for the image element, we said that the src attribute is very important. Also, for the link element, there is an attribute that is also very important. And this is what we call the href attribute. And remember how you write your attributes. After the name of the element, you add a space, then the name of your attribute, and in here you need to specify the value of your attribute. So this is also similar to the image element. For the image element, we use the src, and here we added the value of the attribute, which is the image we want to load. So in here, we want to add the link to the document. We want to link to our own document. I hope that is not confusing. So in here, we can actually, for now, go to youtube.com or any website at all. So here we can copy this particular link. Now go back to our own page, and in our document, so here in our document, inside this place, you can now paste this link. When you save this file, first thing, you see that this actually changes the color, and then you have this underline. So this actually is an hyperlink. When you click on this, it's simply going to open youtube.com. So let's close this, and now click on this. You see, this opens youtube.com. But there is something to note. You see that now it opens youtube.com on the same page. So if you go back to our page, you see it's going to open youtube.com on this same tab. So if you click here on the same tab, it goes to youtube.com. What happens if we want to open the youtube.com in another tab? So let's go back to our page. Remember, I said attributes, we use attributes to actually add more meaning, to add definition to a particular element, or to modify the behavior of an element. So in here now, we can add another attribute, and that is what we call the target attribute. So in here, you have different options, but here we are going to use the underscore blank. So you add the target attribute, and here we put underscore blank. What this does is actually to make sure that when a user clicks on this link, it's going to leave this tab. So your page is going to still be open, but it's going to open this link on another tab. So if you click on this, you see you now have the same YouTube page opened, but in another tab. This is simply how you add links to your website. So you see now, from our website, we can go to youtube.com. From our Facebook page, we can go to Instagram. We can do anything. There are more things we can also do with the anchor elements. For instance, instead of going to YouTube, we can also open another HTML document in our own project. And we can also move from, for instance, moving from this particular session to another section of our page. But we are going to be seeing that later. For now, I just want you to practice with this. Here you can add another link that simply takes you to linkedin.com. So I'm going to wait and see you do that. Okay, I hope you are able to do that. The next thing we want to look at is actually how we can make this particular document more easy to understand. So let's actually structure our document a little bit. So let's simply remove this and let's save our page. We can simply go back to the portfolio website. And as you see, if you expand this, you actually see that this actually looks like the nav section. So it looks like navigation. So here we can simply add another HTML element, and it is called the navigation. So we use NAV. So we want to wrap this particular list item, everything here, we want to wrap it in the nav. If you save this and you go back to the page, nothing is going to happen. This does not change anything. But this is also important because remember, I mentioned semantic meaning. This actually helps screen readers to know that this particular section of your page is the navigation area. So another HTML we can also add is what we call the header. And the header also has semantic meaning. So all these HTML elements are actually coming from the HTML5. You don't need to worry about this for now. So let's remove this. And here, let's add this. All I want you to know is that there are some elements in HTML that has special meaning attached to them. It does not affect how the page looks like, but this actually means that, oh, this particular area is the header of this document, and these are the navigation elements. It is very important. Another thing this does is like a container. There is also another thing we can use. Instead of putting the header, we can also use what we call div. Div is simply like a container in HTML, but div does not have a semantic meaning. It does not have any meaning attached to it. It does not assist screen readers to understand our website. This is just used majorly for styling purposes. So when you hear people mention semantic HTML, it's using all the HTML elements that actually have important meaning, that has a special meaning attached to them, just like the strong element. The strong element is saying here that the full stack engineer is a very special, is a very important test. Okay, we don't use the strong element because we just want to make this bold. No, we use the strong element because we want to lay more emphasis. We want to make a point that this particular text is very important. So in here, let's put back our header. And after this header, we have this particular section from the H1 to this part. We can actually wrap this in another HTML element, and this is called session. So remember, this does not change the look of the page, but this actually helps us to group our document and also attach more meaning to our document. So in here, we can add session. And for the services also, we can simply wrap it inside the session. Here we put this. And the same thing goes for the H2. So this also have to be in a session. And we do the same thing for the last part, which is the contact. So this has to also be in a session. And remember, the contact part actually ends here. Now we are left with this particular element. And if you go back to the deployed project, you actually see that you have this particular section, which we call the header. And here, this is what we call the footer. Just like in your letter writing, remember when you finish, you say yours sincerely, and then you put your name. So this is like the end part of the HTML document. And there is also another HTML element called the footer. So you see that HTML is just like the normal document. So in your footer, you now have to put every text that you want to be inside the footer. So you see, when we go back to the page, all these particular new elements that we added does not change anything, but very, very important for screen readers and also making our document more easy to understand. So now when you come back to this HTML document, you can simply see that this is the header, and you can see that inside after the header, you have different section. Now also we can add another HTML element, which is the main. So the main is actually going to wrap so here all the session, we can wrap all the session inside the main. So let's close this and go back. Now look at the structure of our document. So we now, inside our body, we now have the header part, we now have the main part of our document, and now we have the footer. This is semantic HTML. This is very important to understand as a beginner to programming. If you really want to be writing clean HTML code, your HTML document should have this particular structure. So you have your body, you have the header, you have the main, and you have the footer. And now this is more clear. So if you go to the deployed project, so here now, you can simply understand that this is the header, and every other thing is the main section of your website, and this is the footer. And this ends the HTML part. We are going to look more into semantic HTML, but next we need to start with the CSS so that we can complete our website and start with the main project of the series, which is building the landing page of Upwork.com. See you guys in the CSS session. Take a break and just make sure you go through everything we've done. You can remove everything on this page and do it from scratch by yourself. Go to the MDN HTML, just type MDN HTML, and it's going to take you to the MDN documentation. Please just review everything we've done. And if you have a question, a contribution, please just use the comment section.